Hey now, say now, what's up, solar system? It is your girl, Righteous Soul, and today I'm actually going to be talking about a more serious topic, but one that is kind of being made a spectacle of because there's so many revolving factors. But before I get into the nitty gritty of the voting part that I want to discuss, I actually want to remind you guys. I know some of you guys are doing early voting. Have any of you guys done early voting? If so, put in the comments some things that we need to prepare for, some things that maybe we need to expect for those of us who will be voting early. And I think we have until October the 29th for early voting. I'll have to double check that, but I think that's until October the 29th. I'm here in Memphis, Tennessee, so for us that I know of, that's where we are. And if you've done early voting, tell us a little bit in comments about your experience. If you had a negative experience, a positive experience, did you run into any hiccups? Did you come prepared with all the things you needed and something still went wrong? Let us know that, because a lot of that happens and it can be very frustrating to the voting experience, and it makes you not want to vote. I know for a fact I was riding through to my appointments, and I saw a line wrapped around, I think it was Anointed Temple of Praise, ATOP is what they call it here. And that church line was so long, it was literally wrapped around the building. And, I was looking at the kind of the distance between the people, and if that was something that I wanted to be in at the moment, but also if I could stand that long on my injury waiting on that line. It was just so long. So be prepared, one, for a long line if you are doing early voting. I can't tell you that a lot. I think we hit some numbers with this voting year, and so that's one of the things that I would be prepared for. If you are like me and you have an injury or something, you want to be prepared. I'm not sure if you take medication. That's another thing to either bring with you or to kind of just prepare around the time that you'll go voting, because you can't predict if it'll be 10 people in line ahead of you or 30 or 50 people ahead of you. You just don't know. And because we don't know things like that, we want to just kind of prepare in advance. And I'm just telling y'all just so you already know. Another thing to keep in mind also is you want to be, guys, we want to have our mask. We want to have our mask for our protection and for other people's protection too. And just because everything doesn't have to be a rebel move. Like, mask up. If you're gonna be talking to me, I want you maxed up. But just please, out of respect, and I'm going to do the same for you in that regard. My safety and your safety, even if it hasn't been proven what the cure, or what spreads it, what doesn't spread it, or if masks help or don't. It is better to be safe than sorry, and we learned that in so many areas of our life. Why not now? So I'm just going to go ahead and encourage you guys, because you're going to need them. So whether you want to be a rebel or not, mask up. Also, your ID is another thing you want to have, and whether that just be your identification or your driver's license, you want to have your identification in case you don't have it. If you're doing early voting, in case you don't have your voter's registration card, and they are saying that you are allowed to use your identification if you don't have it. So that'll be something for you to kind of keep in mind if you're going to go ahead and do early voting, and then you don't run into some of the hiccups that you could run into if you're not prepared. So I'm just trying to help in any way that I can. And then also too, I know this one is more simple than not, but you want to know your parties, like like their colors coordinate with the different parties, even all the way to the independent party being orange. We have red for Republican and blue for Democrat. When you look and you see, oh, that's typically a red state, or that's typically a blue state, you want to know what it is we're talking about. And if you don't know the lingo or understand it, it'll be easy to kind of just be like, I don't care about voting or this, or I don't understand that. Those are some things that you can understand, or at least look into some of the basic things, like the color of the party that you're representing, or and if you're trying to branch off from a different party, in another party is something that you want to see what policies the candidates are supporting. That's very, very important. And if you don't know that before you go to the poll, just voting blindly isn't helping us either. They say, I'd rather you vote than not vote. But voting blindly isn't helping us either, if you kind of look at it that way. We have enough time now to do at least a little research on who we're voting for and what these people stand for. It's just a matter of time before we get someone either in office, a new person in office, or we kind of still have the same person in office for another 4 years. And what are we doing here? So if we can help that in any way, 2020 has brought its share of bad news. I don't want election day to be part of that bad news, though it would not shock me at this point. So I just want you guys to know, the more we educate ourselves, even in the small areas such as color of the party that I represent or that I'm voting for, like small things like that may not matter to you, but when you're looking at, oh, this might be a red state, or you hear this might be a blue state, you want to be able to know what they're talking about when they say things like that. Yeah, so that's that. So we got the basics out of the way. Things that you'll need when you're standing in those long lines. You're going to need a whole ounce of patience, because standing in those lines and then you having other things to do later, or places to be, or you got to pick up the kids, go ahead and plan in advance, because there's no telling how long you could be in those lines for hours. And I just don't want you to give up when this could have been kind of planned for. All right, so next up, that we got the early voting. Who do you vote for? That's not something I could tell someone. That's not something even when my mom was here that she could tell me. You can't. And most people vote for who their family voted for, in that generation that voted for before that generation came. You're just kind of voting in an endless cycle of who my mama voted for, who my daddy voted for, or, who. That's almost like the religion topic for me. I feel like people should be able to branch out and kind of decide how they're going to shape their own futures, and it shouldn't always be dependent on the life they were born into, because that's how a lot of us get stuck in those generational curses and unable to break them, because you're always doing what you've always done. But that's not to say go the opposite way. That's just to say, if you're going to be sticking to what your family has done before you, then at least do your research in what you're supporting and what the party, what the candidate is bringing to the table, for that particular party. So that's all I'm saying. Like, no matter who you vote for, just kind of keep that in mind, and if you can help it, don't vote blindly just because. And I know a lot of people will say, well, we want him out of office, so you need to vote the opposite type of thing. And if that's what you truly believe and that's what's in your heart, yes. But I'm all for doing your research and making sure you make the right decision for you, because think about it, you're gonna have to live with that at the end of the day. Did you do it for you, or did you do it because everyone else was doing it? All right, so there's that. And you just got to keep in mind that I know a lot of people are saying, like, this whole election is a spectacle, and in many ways I get it, because they're saying, like, when the lesser of two evils is still evil, like, what am I voting for? I'm going to tell you right now, there is no perfect candidate, period. There can be dirt found on either side, no matter which candidate. You could put names in a hat, draw it, and I could tell you dirt, blood, sweat. No matter what, there is some traces of things that you may not like about somebody's past that's there, because we all have a past, and I'm just a firm believer of, we just don't want it to be telling us. That's not the kind of past. So you kind of start early on. That's why we teach children earlier on to make wiser choices, so that when we come to a moment of we want to be in office, or we want to now be in a leadership position, and we don't want that to haunt us. So that's kind of why we kind of drive in the whole listen, you don't want to make the same mistake that I did, or you don't want to. That's why, guys, we do it for this reason. So when it comes down to this, there is no candidate that is perfect. Just imagine right now if you were running for office, any office, it doesn't matter, because for the most part in office, it's going to be some form of a leadership position, right? Even if it's the lesser of the leadership position, it's still a position there. You bring up now think about everything bad that you've done in your past. Think about every tweet, think about every post, think about every unkind act, think about the things you did when no one was looking. Think about what people could dig up if you were the one running for office. So that's why I say, even if the lesser of two evils is still evil, a choice is there to be made. It's not like saying, well, I don't have enough choices to choose. You don't need a million. You do not need a million choices. That would make our decisions so much harder, and there's no telling who would end up. And I know we're saying, like, if he ended up in office, then, there's, after 44 you think of 45, and you're just like, the comparison and all what you think about them is all going to be conditional on where you stand on what side of what party, right? The people that are Trump supporters stand firmly for Trump, and the people that are not Trump supporters stand against him, in a sense. And then there are some that are like, hey, I may not like the man's ways or how he does things, but I could see him getting some things done. So you got so many different elements moving here. So just keep in mind that saying the lesser of two evils is still evil still leaves you with a choice. Like, you still have to choose. And I don't want people to think that because you don't have perfect candidates that means, okay, no voting. No, that's it. I'm not gonna do either. And if you are making that choice not to vote, that is still your choice. No one should make you feel bad for it. But you will have those of us who understand the history behind voting, who understand how much they went through, and we are now that is now being passed on to us, and we are going through even now in 2020, and why we kind of push hard for those who are eligible to vote. And if we can keep ourselves from getting into certain troubles that prevent us from voting later, even that. And some of that stuff, you can't help. Some people are just going to run into different issues, and we understand that it's the nature of the beast. But I'm just encouraging you guys to kind of like look at it from different lenses. There's no one right way of doing this thing, because right now we just kind of got 2020 got us all messed up. So there's so much happening in 2020 that the election isn't even the biggest of the issue. That, like, we have people dying, in a virus that people don't want to speak about, and then there's that. I just had a relative, pass from the virus, and people are closer now. The virus is getting closer and closer to home, and people are kind of trying to be like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't go out this night, maybe I shouldn't club this night, or maybe I shouldn't, do this. And then there's some people still kind of doing it, and so everyone is making the choices based on what they believe and what their life is suited for, and that's kind of what they have to do. And that's where I stand on it. Like, people are going to do what's best for them. So it's just a matter of offering some, more of an unbiased, if you can, way of looking at things. Or at least, there's no perfect candidate. That's what I want to say about that. No perfect candidate, no matter what you're doing. So we just got to keep that in mind. So let that sink in for a moment, and let's go to the next. So, if you're not voting, sorry, I'm getting choked up. If you're not voting, put in the comments, what's one of the reasons why you're not voting? I would like to know, because I don't know all the reasons why people don't vote. I know I want to be able to use my voice to vote now that I can. So what are some of the reasons why you're not voting? And this is a no judgment zone. Anyway, so whatever you choose is just your choice. But I'm just curious, individually, I'm just curious as to why you're not voting. Let's see what we got next. I've already mentioned, if you don't know what candidate to vote for, you have to do your own research. You have to find that out. Or you can or you can ask around. There are some people that are close to you that might know, or you could just type in. We live in the age of technology. You could just type it into Google and figure it out, and you are going to come up with something of, oh, these are reasons why I would like to support this candidate or not. And then there are going to be some that'll be like, you'll find, man, they have this, and this, but it's these two things that I don't like that they're supporting. So you're going to have that too, where, you know, there's going to be no perfect candidate again, because some of them are voting for, or supporting different policies that some of them you may be okay with and some of them you're not. So that's just kind of like how the cookie crumbles. So you just got to keep that in mind. That's because that's a resolvable issue, not voting because you don't know what the policies these people believe in or who you're voting for. I know in local elections we get that where we'll see different names and we're like, I saw the signs on the road, I remember that name, I'm matching it with my memory. That person did a good job on the marketing because I remember them. I remember seeing that name over someone else's name, and you'll vote just for that reason alone. It will not be because you know anything about that candidate, or that person was black and the other person was white, or like you'll make reasons why. Okay, I gotta pick someone, so let me vote blindly again. And we do it all the time in local elections. We don't want to make that same mistake. We don't want to do it locally because that's going to affect us locally, but we definitely don't want to make that mistake nationally. Like, it's when we can help it, we don't. And so I'm just going to encourage us to go ahead, we educate ourselves a day or two on the different parties and then what they bring to the table and what maybe they don't bring to the table, or the history of what we already have seen them do or not do over the last few years. So you got to keep that in mind. And I get it. I get how the election feels like a big joke. I mean, for goodness sake, Saturday Night Live did the spoof of the fly landing on the Vice President Mike Pence's hair. Like, even the fly is saying this year is full of crap. So what makes us think that voting is going to make a difference? And I'm going to personally say that if you're a subscriber and you're not voting, I just want to know why. I don't want to judge you. I just want to know why, because that's some talking points for me to understand. And then if you are voting, I'm just gonna say, hey, good job for using your voice, and there's no judgment either way. I'm curious, and I know that it seems like we are dealing with a lot this year, and we are. Many of us have lost loved ones. They're gone. They're never coming back. No matter what we do, no matter tapping our shoes, no matter praying, to undo this, it's not going to happen. And there are many more people that will be lost. We're dealing with a virus in the middle of an election year, a killer virus in the middle of an election year, and then we're dealing with economical loss, and then you're dealing with the poverty that comes from losing losing finances that supported the home or the car and the things that now you can't even afford. So, and then if you weren't already financially sound, in the sense of had that background of, okay, how do I survive a pandemic? Like, how do I survive with on little? How do I survive on little? If you didn't have the financial literacy courses, or your family didn't teach you about finances, then you're still losing the income that even the stimulus checks, the things that are given to you a little bit more, we're losing them because we weren't financially sound to begin with. So now we got to do that in the middle of trying to figure out. So there's just a lot of decisions that we have to make, and election is part of that decision. We have to say who we want to be in power, and that's our voice. We're saying, hey, I want this candidate. I think this candidate would most represent me, and that's how you have to look at it. Again, like get your mask, get your identification, voter's registration card if you have one. Especially if you're doing early voting, you can vote anywhere, any of the stations, precincts, or whatever. I just want to say there's small things that we all have to do. Educating ourselves it doesn't cost a lot to educate yourself these days when we have the computer so readily available. I mean, we have our president tweeting, for God's sake, over any little thing. So we can get on there and definitely Google some things that we want to know about this election, and I think we should, But I want to say thank you guys for listening to this video. I definitely want you to comment, because I want to be able to engage with you guys about things like this. I mean, it might be this is one of those touchy subjects, just like religion, as I said earlier. But at the same time, this is me utilizing my platform for things like this. And this is a part of how I represent, myself in what I believe in. And I just don't believe in, judging or cutting someone's head off over something that we can help properly educate or seek to understand, So remember, I know it's my world. You know it's my world, but it really isn't a world without you in it. So use your voice, and if you don't want to use your voice, that's okay too, because it's not losing your voice in a sense. If you don't use it, or blindly doing things isn't the better option either. So I'm just gonna say thank you guys. I want you to subscribe if you haven't subscribed. I also want you to check out my other videos, comment, because I'm gonna be asking you things throughout. And also, if you want to become a star comment at the end of my videos, you definitely just comment and interact with me, and that's how you become that. Again, thank you. Like, share, just kind of spread the word. I'm continuing to grow, and it's all because of people like you, so I appreciate it. And you know what's next? Hey now, say now, and